As we've recently entered a new decade, I want to tell you about how, for me, this is going to be a decade of financial independence. So I'm not normally one to make New Year's resolutions, and that hasn't changed. However, by coincidence, I have entered a stage in my life where I have set some clear financial goals, and I am forming a path to achieve those goals. There's a growing movement in the US known as F.I.R.E, which stands for Financial Independence and Retire Early. And the idea is simple. It's that you can, by saving a little more than average, than normal, you can dramatically reduce the age at which you can retire or become financially independent. It's kind of like the secret that the rich have known about for a long time. It's that, you can start putting your money to work for you so that you don't need to work for your money. Maybe it's a secret that the rich have known about, or maybe it's more that people that know about that inevitably become rich. Either way, the truth is that this is a tough world, and we can't really expect anybody to care about us other than, our close friends and close family. Most people only care about themselves. That goes for the people we work with, the people we work for, the government, and just generally the society at large. And the message that we get from society and the ideas that become cultural norms are not always in our best interests, even though they seem completely normal. Our employers will pay us as little as possible to keep us from leaving. The government will tax us as much as they can, and often much of that money is wasted. We're forced to pay money into pensions, which most of the time end up being of little value. And we're encouraged to borrow a lot of money that often we can't afford to buy things which normally we just don't need. My dad was telling me the other day about how during his 30-year career for one single employer, there were several times when he wanted to pack it in. He thought about packing it all in, and I remember those times too. But every time, before he made the decision to leave, his employer came along and gave him just enough of a promotion to keep him enduring the hard work and the daily commutes for a little bit longer. To be honest, I don't hold it against companies for doing this. This is what companies do. They're in the business of making money, and they have to make money by saving money wherever they can. This is how they can then increase their market share by passing on those savings to customers, or make their shareholders happy by passing their money on as profits. This is just what companies do. What bothers me is the extent to which we are forced to give up our freedom. Most of us pay a huge amount of tax. This is true especially if we're not rich. And that may seem a little unfair, and it is. But that's a can of worms we can open in another video. As an example, if you earn between £25,000 and £40,000, you probably pay a little over 20% of your money before you even see it in national insurance and in income tax. Then, from what's left, you'll pay another 20% on what you spend in the form of VAT. And when you factor in extra duty on things like fuel and tobacco and alcohol and now sugar, and also things like council tax, most people are probably paying well over 50% of what they earn in tax. Now wait, I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay our fair share of tax. We absolutely should. But it should be easier for us to be aware of how much we're spending in tax and where that money's going, and also the ways in which we are entitled to pay less tax. The problem is, most of the time, this information is very difficult to find, and it almost feels like it's hidden from us. Pensions are also taken from us before we see that money, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if it was left down to us, I think most people wouldn't save sufficiently for their retirement. But the truth is that even with all of the things like the tax incentives on pensions and the employer's contributions, the pensions are normally invested in such poor investment products that by the time we get to investment age, they end up being a shadow of what they could have been worth if they had just been invested in simpler, cheaper and easily available investment products. I have a pension with my employer, and it feels like it's made very difficult for me to see exactly how much it's worth on any given day, and also have any say or even know where it's being invested. And this is something that bothers me. But as we go through life and we earn more and more money, it should become easier and easier for us to start saving and investing more and more of that money. But it isn't. There's a kind of peer pressure, or the idea of like keeping up with the Joneses, which makes us spend more and more of that money and take on larger and larger liabilities, often on things that we don't need. Things like a more expensive car, or a fancier car, a bigger house, more expensive holidays. And this just seems silly to me. And it's made even sillier by the fact that as we start to earn more, banks become more and more willing to lend us even more money. And this just means that these expensive things that we're buying that we don't need end up costing us more than the ticket price, because a big chunk of the money is just going to the bank. So we're actually getting less and less for our money as we spend more and more, or we give more and more to the bank. So for me, financial independence is about resisting these ideas, resisting to spending money, even though it's normal and accepted in our society and everyone's doing it. It's about resisting this and saving as much money as we can, so that it can grow as we build a nest egg to the point that the money that is earned by that nest egg is enough money to live on. What it doesn't mean is that I will be able to just completely retire and stop working and live a life of leisure. The nest egg, that would be very expensive, and the nest egg probably wouldn't generate enough money to cover that anyway, unless I was able to build it up to a huge amount. What it means is that I would then have the freedom to work on things that I want to work on and not work on things that I don't want to work on. Nobody will be able to tell me, where to go, where to be, when I can or when I can't go on holiday. If somebody comes to me with a project that I just don't like the sound of, I don't have to waste my time with it. I have the freedom to say no. So that is what it's all about. Now, the maths behind financial independence is actually quite simple. There are investments out there like tracker funds and things like that, which can conservatively make on average 5% a year. That's very conservative. In reality, they'll probably make more like 9 or 10%. Now, they may not make that every year. They might have years where they're down, or years where they're up. But on average, it should even out to be about, well, it will probably be around 9%. But, you conservatively expect 5%. That's the key. So when your net worth invested in these types of investments is 25 times your annual outgoing costs, then that is the point where you've reached financial independence. This is because you've then got to the point where you can take out 4%, because 1 in 25 is 4%. You can take out 4% from this nest egg every year, and you can comfortably expect the value, the overall value in the long term of the nest egg to not go down. In fact, it's more likely to continue going up, albeit at a lower rate. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can either earn more money or spend less money. And there are people who go to the extremes on both sides. People who have lots of side projects on top of a full-time job that make money, and there are people that try to achieve financial independence by living very, very frugal lives, and then continue to live those frugal lives once they've reached that point. So they can reach that point sooner, but then they have to continue living that frugal life. So I'm not really interested in extreme frugality, and to be honest, I'm not really sure exactly how this is going to look for me. I'm still figuring this out. Now, many people start doing this in their very early 20s, and some people are able to reach the point of financial independence by the time, by their mid 30s or even earlier. But obviously I can't do that because I'm already 41. And although I've only really started thinking about this now, I've realized that I have sort of had some of these principles beforehand, and I have built a bit of a nest egg, nowhere near as big as it could have been, but now I'm going to be focusing on building that, and hopefully this decade I will reach that point where I'm financially independent. But I still have a long way to go, so I thought it'd be interesting to start making some videos and blogging about my progress. Partly because there's a lot of content on the internet already about this, but most of it is very America centered, and there's a lot of things, under American law which just aren't relevant in the UK. So things like tax efficient savings like ISAs and pensions and things like that. The law's all completely different in the US to what it is here. So I'm going to start thinking about this from a British point of view. So if this is of interest to you, and if you're still watching this video now after like 10 minutes, then presumably it is, then please give me a thumbs up, because that really does help, and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified when I make new videos. And let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if there's anything you want me to make a video about, and I will see what I can do. Anyway, thanks for watching for now, and I will see you again soon.